The galaxy was wide, dark, and full of voices that did not welcome her. The alien woman walked alone, her steps heavy, her eyes tired. She had no family, no friends, and no place to call her own. Every world she visited had turned her away. To them, she was only a stranger, someone who did not belong. Her skin, pale and glowing faintly in the night, made her different. Her eyes, deep and shining like two small stars, frightened those who looked at her. Children hid when she walked past, and merchants closed their doors. No one wanted her near. She had once lived among her own kind. Long ago, before the war destroyed her home, she had been part of a family. But now that world was dust, and those faces she loved were gone. She carried only memories, and even those felt heavy like stones on her back. The night on this world was cold. Wind blew across the empty land, carrying the smell of stone and dust. She pulled a torn cloth around her shoulders and sat under a crooked tree. Her stomach hurt with hunger and her body shook with weakness. She closed her eyes and whispered, "I just need a place. Anywhere to rest." But there was no answer. Only silence. Only loneliness. She thought of the last town she had entered. People stared, then shouted at her to leave. Some threw small stones. One man had raised a weapon, his face hard with anger. She had run as fast as her weak legs allowed, escaping into the wilderness. That was how she ended up here, sitting in the dark with nowhere to go. As the stars shone above, she asked herself if this was the end. Would she die here, far from her people, forgotten by everyone? The thought made her chest heavy. She tried not to cry, but the tears came anyway, sliding down her strange, glowing skin. Then, a sound broke the silence. A crunch of footsteps on stone. Her body tensed. Her first thought was danger. She had been hunted before, chased away, hurt. She curled up, her thin hands ready to push away whatever came. A shadow appeared. A tall figure stood against the pale moonlight. She held her breath. The figure moved closer, slow and steady, and then she saw it. A human. She knew of humans. They were strong, clever, and spread across many worlds. Some were kind, some were cruel. She did not know what kind of human this one would be. The human stopped a few steps away. His face was rough from the wind, his clothes simple, worn from hard work. His eyes looked at her, not with fear, not with hate, but with something else, something she had not seen in a long time. He spoke. His voice was low, calm. "You are alone." The alien woman did not answer. She only watched him carefully, ready to run if he raised his hand against her. He looked at her torn cloth, at her shaking body. Then he did something strange. He took a small bag from his side and pulled out bread. Simple bread, rough and dry, but food. He placed it on the ground between them. Her stomach growled, her eyes locked on the bread, but her mind screamed, "Is this a trick?" Many times before, she had been offered something only for it to be taken away or turned into cruelty. The human did not push her. He only said, "Eat. You need it." Slowly, with trembling hands, she reached for the bread. She tore a piece and tasted it. The dry crumbs filled her mouth, but to her it was sweeter than anything she had eaten in months. She ate in silence while the human stood watching. When she finished, she looked at him. She expected him to demand something in return, but instead he said, "You need shelter. Come with me." Her eyes widened. Shelter? With a human? She shook, her head, unsure, afraid. No one had ever spoken to her like this. The human turned and pointed toward the rocky valley in the distance. "There we can build something. A place for you to rest." She almost laughed. Build something? With what? With stone? It sounded impossible. She was weak, broken, and tired. How could anyone build a home for her now? But the human's voice carried no doubt. His eyes showed no mockery, only determination. She hesitated, her heart pulling in two directions, fear and hope. Hope was dangerous. Hope always ended in pain. Yet as she looked at the man standing before her, holding nothing but kindness in his hands, she felt something stir inside her chest. Maybe, just maybe, this time was different. The alien woman stood slowly, her legs shaking, but her eyes locked on the valley. The human nodded once as if to say, "You are not alone anymore." Together, they began to walk toward the rocks. The stars watched from above as if holding their breath. And in that moment, though she did not know it yet, her life was about to change forever. The night was long, but the alien woman kept walking beside the human. Her steps were slow, her body weak, yet something inside pushed her forward. The valley he had pointed to was not far, but to her it felt like a journey across worlds. The human walked with steady steps. He did not speak much, but when he did, his words were simple. "Careful. Watch the stones." Or, "This way." His tone was calm, not harsh. He moved like someone who knew the land, like someone who belonged here. The alien woman, on the other hand, felt like a ghost drifting where she did not belong. She wondered why he was helping her. No one else had ever stopped. Why him? Finally, they reached the valley. The moonlight fell on sharp rocks and tall cliffs, forming a hidden place far from the roads and towns. The wind was quieter here, trapped between stone walls. The human stopped, looked around, and then turned to her. His face was serious but not unkind. "This will do." She tilted her head, confused. "Do for what?" He pointed at the ground, then at the cliffs. "A home. Stone is strong. Stone lasts. We can use it." Her eyes widened. A home? Built from these cold, heavy rocks? She almost laughed, but her throat was too dry. "I have nothing," she whispered. "No tools. No strength." The human's eyes met hers. "Then I will use mine." Without another word, he bent down and lifted a large rock. His hands were rough, his arms strong from years of labor. He carried the stone and set it in place against the cliff wall. Then, he picked up another, and another. The alien woman watched, stunned. Each stone he carried seemed to speak louder than his words. She had seen humans fight, humans shout, humans turn away. But never a human building something for someone like her. Her voice trembled. "Why? Why are you doing this?" He stopped and looked at her. His answer was short. "Because you need it." Those 4 words struck her harder than any blow she had taken before. Because you need it. No one had ever cared about what she needed. Still, fear wrapped around her heart. She stepped back. "What do you want from me? Food? Gold? My labor?" The human shook his head. "Nothing. You survive. That is enough." She stared at him in silence. The human returned to his work, stacking stones carefully, one after the other. His movements were slow but strong, each rock placed with purpose. Her eyes followed his hands. His skin was cracked, dirt pressed into every line. Yet there was no cruelty in his touch, only patience. Hours passed. A faint wall began to take shape, small, uneven, but real. The alien woman felt a strange pull inside her chest. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe in this wall of stone and his strange offer of kindness. But the weight of her past whispered in her ear. Trust leads to pain. Hope leads to loss. Still, as the stars shifted above, she found herself moving closer. She picked up a smaller stone, light enough for her thin hands to carry. She placed it near the wall, awkward and clumsy. The human glanced at her. For a moment she feared he would laugh. But instead he gave a small nod, as if her tiny stone mattered just as much as his heavy ones. She felt warmth spread through her chest. By dawn, the beginnings of a shelter stood before them. Just a low wall of stone, not even waist high, but to her it looked like a fortress. Her legs trembled and she sat down against the wall, staring at it as if it were a dream. "I never thought anyone would build for me." The human sat nearby, his face tired but calm. Everyone needs a place, even you. She lowered her eyes. No one had ever said even you without hate, without mockery. From his lips, it sounded like truth. But before she could answer, a sound carried through the valley. A howl, low, deep, and close. Her body stiffened. She knew that sound. Predators. The human's head turned sharply. He stood, picking up a broken branch lying nearby. It was not much, but in his hands, it looked like a weapon. He glanced back at her. Stay close to the wall. Her heart pounded. Shadows moved at the edge of the valley. Eyes glowed in the dim light, watching them. The creatures circled, testing, waiting. Fear surged through her. This was the moment. She had trusted again, and now death had found her. But the human did not. Run! He raised the branch, his body firm, his eyes locked on the danger. They will not touch you, he said quietly. She stared at him, stunned. His words were not a boast. They were a promise. For the first time in years, the alien woman felt something powerful rise inside her. Not fear, not despair, but the faint spark of hope. The predators howled again, their eyes closing in. The night was far from over, and as the human stood ready to fight for her, she realized this strange offer was more than food, more than stones. It was the beginning of something she had thought impossible. It was the beginning of trust. The night had been long, filled with growls and glowing eyes. Yet when the morning sun rose over the valley, the predators were gone. They had circled, they had tested, but they never crossed the human's stance. His torch of fire and his voice, steady and fearless, had kept them back. The alien woman sat against the half-built wall, her body trembling, not from fear now, but from disbelief. A human had stood between her and death. He had chosen to guard her, not abandon her. That thought stayed in her mind like a spark that refused to die. When the first light touched the valley stones, the human lowered his branch and sat down. He said nothing about the danger. Instead, he picked up another rock and began to work again, as if the night had been nothing more than passing shadows. The alien woman watched him. His hands were cracked, his shoulders sore, yet he worked without complaint. Each stone he lifted seemed to carry not just weight, but meaning. She had seen warriors fight battles. She had seen merchants count coins, but never had she seen someone fight silence and emptiness with simple stone. At first, she did not move. But the wall, though small, called to her. Something inside whispered, "Help him, build with him." So she pushed herself up, legs shaking, and picked up a small rock. It was not heavy, but to her, it felt like lifting a piece of her past. She placed it next to the others. The human noticed. His eyes met hers for a brief moment. He gave a short nod. No smile, no words, just recognition. That single gesture made her chest feel warm. Together, they worked. The sun rose higher, heating the stones. Sweat formed on the human's face. Dust stuck to his arms. The alien woman's glowing skin dimmed under the dirt, her hands scratched from sharp edges. Yet for the first time in a long while, her pain felt useful. Every bruise meant the wall grew higher. As hours passed, the wall became more than just stones stacked on each other. It became a shape, a circle of protection. She ran her hand along the rough edges, and a strange thought entered her mind. This could be mine. This could be home. But her hope was fragile, like glass ready to break. She looked at the human and whispered, "Why do you trust me? I am not one of you." He did not stop working. "Because you are alive. That is enough." Those words struck her deeper than any weapon. Alive. She had been treated as less than alive for so long, something to be ignored, something to be chased away. And yet, to him, being alive was reason enough. The day stretched on. They paused, only once when he shared water with her. The water was warm and tasted of metal, but to her it was life. She drank slowly, feeling strength return to her limbs. When the sun began to sink, the wall was waist-high. It wrapped around a small space against the cliff, like arms trying to protect something fragile. The alien woman sat inside the circle of stone. She touched the wall with her fingertips and felt the heat still trapped from the sun. For the first time in years, she felt a kind of safety. Her mind whispered doubts. What if this human leaves? What if the wall falls? But her heart pushed back. What if he stays? What if this grows? The human finally sat beside her, breathing hard, wiping sweat from his brow. Tomorrow, he said simply, we make it higher. She tilted her head, studying him. His words carried no question, no hesitation, only certainty. Silence stretched between them, but it was not the silence of loneliness. It was the silence of two people sharing something unspoken. Yet the peace did not last. As the stars returned, faint sounds echoed from the trees beyond the valley. Not predators this time, voices, low, distant, but human. The alien woman froze. Her stomach twisted with fear. She remembered the shouts, the stones thrown, the anger of the last town. If people found her here, what would they do? The human's head turned sharply toward the sound. His eyes narrowed. Stay behind the wall, he whispered. She crouched, low, her heart pounding. The wall was not finished. It would not keep intruders out. But somehow she felt safer crouching behind the stones they had built together. The voices grew closer, carried on the wind. She could not make out words, only tones curious, cautious, maybe hostile. The human stood gripping another heavy branch, ready once more to defend. His figure blocked the opening of the wall, broad and unmoving. She pressed her hands against the rough stone and whispered a silent prayer. Not to her people, not to the stars, but to the stones themselves. Hold, protect. Do not let this end. Takdir. Night thickened. The voices lingered but did not enter the valley. Slowly they faded, moving away. Only when silence returned did the human relax. He set down the branch and looked at her. Tomorrow, we must build faster. She nodded, unable to speak, her throat tight with relief. And as she sat back inside the half-circle of stone, she realized something powerful. The wall was not just stone. It was hope. And hope, once placed, could not be easily torn down. For the first time since her world had burned, the alien woman allowed herself to believe. Maybe she was not lost anymore. The valley had given them a gift, silence. The wall of stone was still low, but to the alien woman it already felt like a shield. Each day she and the human worked side by side, lifting stones, stacking them carefully, shaping a space that could protect them from the winds and the cold. For the first time in years, her hands bled for something that mattered. She was no longer drifting like a lost shadow. She was part of something being built. But the shadows had not left her life. They were waiting, watching. It began with small things. At night, she sometimes saw a flicker of movement on the ridge, above the valley. A quick shadow, gone before she could be sure. Then there were the sounds, stones tumbling where no wind had touched them, branches cracking under unseen feet. The human noticed too. One evening, as they placed the last rock of the day, he paused and stared into the trees. His jaw tightened. We are not alone. The alien woman's chest grew heavy. Her voice shook. Who is it? Not beasts, he said quietly. People. Her blood turned cold. People meant trouble. People meant anger, shouts, stones thrown not for building but for harm. She remembered the last town, the voices full of hate. If strangers found her here, behind this half-built wall, they would not show mercy. That night, they lit no fire. The human sat near the opening of the wall, holding a strong branch sharpened at the end. His eyes stayed fixed on the darkness. The alien woman curled up against the stones, her body trembling, Yet part of her felt safer with him sitting guard. He was not like others. He had not abandoned her before, and she prayed he would not abandon her now. Hours passed. The wind carried whispers, low, soft, almost human. Her glowing skin dimmed as fear ran through her. She closed her eyes and tried not to breathe. Then it came, a voice sharp and loud, echoing in the valley. "We know you're here." The alien woman's heart stopped. She pressed herself against the wall, her claws digging into the dirt. The human stood tall, branch in hand. His voice was steady. "Leave. There is nothing for you here." Laughter answered him. Cruel, mocking laughter. More than one voice, maybe 3 or 4. Shadows shifted at the edge of the valley just beyond the moonlight. "Nothing?" One voice called back. "We see something. We see her." The alien woman's chest tightened. They had come for her, just like always. The human did not move. His body blocked the opening. "She is under my protection," he said, his tone low and dangerous. Another laugh. "Protection? From you? One man with a stick?" The alien woman wanted to sink into the ground. She had seen this before. Promises broken when danger came. No one had ever truly stood for her. She whispered, "They will kill us. You should run." The human looked back at her. For the first time, his voice rose like thunder. "No, I will not run. Not while you need me." The words hit her heart like fire. She could not understand it. Why? Why risk his life for her? She was nothing. She had no value. Yet here he stood, ready to fight for her. The shadows moved closer. One man stepped forward, his face half hidden, his hand gripping a knife. The moon glinted off the blade. The human raised his branch and took a step forward, not back. His voice boomed across the valley. "Come closer and you'll regret it." The air grew heavy with silence. The intruders whispered among themselves. They had not expected this. One man, unshaken, standing against them without fear. Minutes dragged by like hours. Finally, the shadows faded back into the trees. One voice spat out, "This isn't over." Then they were gone. The valley grew quiet again. Only the sound of the wind remained. The alien woman's knees gave out and she sank to the ground. Her whole body shook. She had been ready for death, ready to lose again. But it had not come. Not this time. The human lowered his branch, his chest rising and falling with deep breaths. He did not speak of victory, did not boast. He only looked at her and said, "We build higher tomorrow, stronger. No one will break this." Tears stung her eyes. She tried to hide them, but they slipped down her cheeks. For so long she had been nothing but a burden, something unwanted. And now, someone had chosen to fight for her. She touched the wall of stone with shaking hands. It was rough, uneven, still incomplete. Yet in that moment, it felt unbreakable. The night ended with the two of them sitting side by side in silence. But it was not the silence of fear. It was the silence of two lives tied together by danger, by courage, by hope. Far above, the stars shone brighter, as if watching closely. And deep in the shadows of the forest, other eyes still waited, hungry for another chance. But inside the circle of stone, the alien woman whispered to herself, "For the first time, I am not alone." The valley was no longer silent emptiness. It was alive with sound, the thud of stones, the scrape of wood, the soft rhythm of work. Each day the wall grew higher, stronger. What had started as a rough circle of rocks was slowly shaping into something real, a shelter, a home. The alien woman had never imagined this. She had walked for so long without direction, without purpose, carrying only pain. Now her hands bled not from punishment or flight, but from helping to build. Her body ached, but every bruise meant progress. Every stone set into place meant safety. The human worked beside her, his movements steady and sure. He rarely spoke while he worked, but she began to understand his silence. It was not emptiness. It was focus. It was dedication. One evening, when the wall reached higher than her shoulders, she sat on the ground and stared at it. The sun dipped low, painting the stones gold. For the first time, the light did not feel cold on her skin. She whispered, almost afraid to say the words, "It looks like a home." The human, setting down a heavy rock, glanced at her. His face was calm, but his eyes carried something stronger. "It is a home. Yours." Her chest tightened. "Mine." "Yes." His voice was firm. "No one can take this from you. Not the cold, not the dark, not them." She knew he meant the voices, the men who had come in the night. Fear still lingered inside her, but each stone seemed to push that fear farther away. The next day, the human gathered wood from the nearby forest. She watched him cut branches, smooth them with his knife, and place them across the stone wall. Slowly, a roof began to take shape. It was rough, uneven, but when he tied the branches with rope, it felt strong. She helped in small ways, holding the wood, passing stones, pressing mud into cracks. Her hands were clumsy, but he never criticized. Every task she completed, no matter how small, he treated as important. By nightfall, the roof stood firm. She stepped inside the circle of stone and wood and looked up. For the first time in years, no stars stared down at her from above. She was covered, protected. Tears welled in her eyes. She touched the wall gently and whispered, "I thought I would never have this again." The human set down his tools and sat beside her. "Now you do." For a moment, silence filled the space. But it was warm silence, not empty. The days passed, and the home grew. She carved small patterns into the stones, symbols from her people, marks of memory. At first she was shy, afraid he might not understand. But when he saw the symbols, he only nodded and said, "Good. Your home should have your mark." Those words made her heart glow brighter than her skin ever had. As the home neared completion, she felt something new inside her. Laughter. It escaped her lips one afternoon when the human tried to lift a stone too heavy even for him. The rock slipped, and he fell back into the dirt. For a moment she feared he would be angry. But then, he laughed too. The sound filled the valley, echoing against the cliffs. It was the first time she had laughed in years. The sound startled her, but it also healed something deep inside. But the shadows of the past were never far. One evening, as they rested by the wall, the human looked toward the forest. "Rumors will spread," he said quietly. She tensed. "Rumors?" He nodded. "People will talk. They saw us. Word will travel. Not all will approve." Her stomach twisted. She knew what that meant: anger, judgment, rejection. She lowered her eyes. "They will come for me." The human's hand gripped the stone wall firmly. "Let them come. They will see this house. They will see you are not alone." His certainty both comforted and frightened her. Could one home, built of stone and hope, stand against the weight of hatred? That night, she sat inside the shelter, her back against the cool stones. She ran her fingers over the symbols she had carved. Each line was a memory of her people. Each mark a piece of her soul placed into the wall. The human sat at the doorway, guarding quietly. His presence was steady, like the stones themselves. She closed her eyes and let the thought rise, a thought she had buried for so long. Maybe I belong here. Maybe this can last. But outside, in the darkness, whispers drifted through the trees. Voices carried on the wind, strangers speaking her name. The home was born. But already the world beyond wanted to test it. The stone house was almost complete. Walls rose firm and tall, the roof was strong, and inside there was space wide enough for rest, warmth, and peace. For the alien woman, it was more than a shelter. It was proof that she was not forgotten. It was a place that whispered, "You belong." But peace does not last long in a galaxy full of eyes and voices. The first visitors came at dawn. The alien woman was carrying water from the stream when she heard footsteps behind her. Her heart froze. For a moment she thought it was the same men who had threatened them before. When she turned, two figures stood at the edge of the valley. Humans. Their clothes were worn, their faces marked with curiosity. They stared at her glowing skin, their eyes wide with wonder and suspicion. "Is it true?" one asked. "A man is building a home for you?" The alien woman's throat tightened. She could not speak. Fear clawed at her chest. The human arrived quickly, carrying wood on his shoulder. He set it down and stood between her and the strangers. His voice was calm but firm. "It's true. She has a home here. She is safe." The two men exchanged glances. One shook his head. "Why waste effort? She's not one of us." The human's jaw clenched. "She doesn't need to be. Everyone deserves a place." The men left, but their whispers echoed behind them. Whispers travel faster than footsteps. By the end of the week, more came. Some were humans, some were aliens from nearby settlements. They arrived in small groups drawn by rumors of the glowing woman and the human who built her a house of stone. Some came only to stare, their faces filled with curiosity. Others frowned, their voices sharp with judgment. One alien with rough scales hissed, "Why give her shelter? She is nothing." The human's answer was the same each time. "She is alive. She needs a home. That is enough." But not everyone left quietly. Anger began to grow among the visitors. To them, her house was not just stone. It was a challenge. It was something they did not understand, and what people do not understand, they often fear. One evening, as the alien woman carved another symbol into the stone wall, a group of visitors gathered outside. They did not enter. They shouted from the edge of the valley, "Come out!" One yelled, "You don't belong here!" Her hands shook. She pressed her forehead against the cool stone and whispered, "They hate me. Always they hate me." The human stood in the doorway. His voice cut through the shouting. "This is her home. If you don't accept it, leave." But the crowd did not leave. One man bent down, lifted a stone from the ground, and threw it. The rock did not strike the wall. It struck her shoulder. She cried out, stumbling back. Pain seared through her body. Memories crashed into her, the town, the stones thrown before, the cruel laughter. Her heart screamed, "It's happening again." But before the crowd could laugh, the human stepped forward. He raised his hand, not in violence but in defiance. His voice thundered across the valley. "Enough." The force in his words made even the boldest man step back. "This house stands. She stays. If you hate it, if you hate her, then go. But you will not harm her here." The crowd murmured, restless, torn between anger and hesitation. They were many, but his certainty shook them. He stood tall, his body firm as the stones themselves. At last the visitors turned and left, their threats trailing in the air. "This isn't over," one muttered. Silence returned. The alien woman sank to the ground, clutching her shoulder. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but they were not only from pain. They were from disbelief. She looked up at him. "Why? Why stand against so many for me?" The human knelt beside her, his hand gentle on her uninjured arm. His eyes were steady. "Because no one should face the world alone. Not anymore. Not you." Her tears fell faster. For so long, she had believed she was worthless, unwanted, better, forgotten. Yet here was a man who built her a home, stood before her enemies and shouted to the world that she mattered. That night she sat inside the house of stone, her back pressed against the wall she had helped shape. The marks of her people glowed faintly in the moonlight, as if her ancestors themselves approved. But outside the valley, whispers grew louder. Anger spread like fire. Some were curious, some jealous, and some filled with hate. The alien woman closed her eyes, listening to the heartbeat of the stone walls around her. They felt strong, but she knew strength would be tested. The house was born. The home was real. But the galaxy had seen it now, and the galaxy never stayed silent for long. The Valley of Stone was no longer hidden. Whispers had spread to villages, towns, and outposts. Stories traveled faster than ships. A human building a home for an alien woman, a home of stone and hope. Some came out of curiosity, others out of anger. The human knew it was only a matter of time before the valley would face its greatest test. The alien woman knew it too. Each night she touched the walls and whispered to herself, "Do not fall. Do not let them take this from me." One morning, the sound of many footsteps echoed across the cliffs. A crowd approached, the largest yet. Humans and aliens together, their voices sharp and restless. The alien woman stood frozen inside the stone house, fear crawling over her skin. She remembered every cruel word, every rock thrown, every door slammed in her face. Now it felt like all of them had returned, gathered outside her fragile home. The human stepped into the doorway, his figure blocking the entrance. His voice carried strong across the valley. "What do you want?" Shouts answered. "We want to know why she is here. She is not one of us. She does not belong." The human's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed firm. "She belongs here because this is her home. This is our home." The crowd grew louder, angry voices mixing with curious ones. Some pointed at the stone house with envy, others with hate. A man stepped forward, his face red with anger. "You waste your strength. Why build for her when there are others of our own who need houses?" The human's eyes burned like fire. "Because no one else helped her. Because no one else even tried. I did not wait for permission. I built." The words struck the crowd like stones themselves. Some fell into silence, uneasy. Others shouted, louder. Then it happened. Another stone flew through the air. The alien woman flinched, covering her head. But this time the rock struck the wall and bounced away. The house held firm. The human raised his hand, pointing at the stone house. His voice roared across the valley. "Do you see this? It is more than stone, it is proof. Proof that kindness is stronger than fear. Proof that walls can be built not to keep people out, but to keep hope alive. Look at it. It stands because we built it together." The alien woman stepped forward, trembling but determined. She placed her hand on the wall, her glowing skin lighting up the rough stones. Her voice was soft, but it carried far in the silence that followed. "I had nowhere to go. I had nothing. Every door closed to me, every world rejected me, but here I was given a chance. Not because of what I am, but because I am alive. And that was enough." The crowd stared. Some shifted uncomfortably, their anger shrinking. Others lowered their eyes, ashamed. A child's voice broke the silence. "She has a home now. Why is that wrong?" The question cut deeper than any argument. Parents exchanged looks. The anger in the crowd began to weaken. One by one, people stepped back. Not everyone, but enough. The fire of hatred began to fade, replaced by something heavier. Thought. The human stood tall, his voice quiet now but powerful. "This house will stand. She will live here. Anyone who wishes to help may. Anyone who wishes to hate, leave. But know this. You cannot stop stone once it has been set." Slowly the crowd thinned. Some left with frowns, some with whispers, but a few stayed behind. Not to fight, but to watch. To see if what they had witnessed was truly possible. The alien woman sank to her knees, tears sliding down her face. But these were not tears of fear. They were tears of something she had thought lost forever. Belonging. The human knelt beside her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "It is over," he said softly. She looked at him, her eyes shining. "No, it is beginning." Word of the stone house spread far beyond the valley. Traders carried the story to distant worlds. Colonists spoke of it in markets and ports, and, soon across the galaxy, people whispered about the human who had built a home for the alien woman everyone else had abandoned. Some called it foolish, some called it dangerous, but others, many others, called it hope. Ships arrived weeks later, Not soldiers, not enemies, but travelers who wished to see the house themselves. They touched the stones, saw the carvings, and whispered about what it meant, and in time, others began to build. Not just houses of stone, but bridges of trust, small and fragile at first, then stronger. The alien woman would often sit inside her home, tracing the symbols she had carved, and smile. She remembered the long nights of hunger, the cruel voices, the endless loneliness. All of it had led here. She had nowhere to go. But now she had everything she needed. A place, a protector, a family, even if it was only one human. And the galaxy, cold, wide and full of shadows, watched in silence as a single home of stone shook its endless darkness.